Hey, everybody, welcome into the podcast this week. Questions that every retiree should know about insurance, the basics. Don't turn us off just yet. It's actually got some invaluable information in there. Hang on. We'll see you on the other side.
In football, the red zone is where a team has to make small adjustments to ensure victory. As you approach retirement, you also need to make small adjustments to ensure success. This is the Red Zone Retirement Program with registered investment advisor and enrolled agent John Mears of Mears Money Management.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for hanging out with John and I here on Red Zone Retirement Program. We want to talk a little bit about insurance. Well, not a little bit, a lot of it. We're going to do a two-parter on this. And I know insurance, oh my God, snooze fest. But there's some stuff in there that we really got to cover, some basics that we really kind of got to deal with, especially if you're of a certain age, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk about that with John this week. And we're going to just spend this episode on the health insurance side. We'll deal with long-term care and some other stuff on the next one. But what's going on, my friend? How you doing?
I'm doing great. We're coaching football, getting ready for our summer season. As we're recording this in early May, we're getting ready to start on June 3rd for football. So we're kind of getting all excited about football. But this episode here, I'm actually excited about what we're talking about today because this is probably the most oft-asked question that is non-investment related when we're talking about financial planning is health insurance. People are worried about it these days. They are. They're cognizant of it, and it can get a little bit complex and confusing. So this is why this is a great topic to go over with people.
Yeah, and there's a lot out there to digest and deal with, and I mean, and the prices are just for everything. It's just crazy. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to take my editor off, John, because the editor for our podcast, because I forgot to turn my light off, and now I did, and so now it looks completely different. So he's going to be mad at me for changing that midstream. Whatever. We're sorry about that, Dan. So listen, let's have a conversation on this health insurance stuff. Cause like we just talked about, right? It's super expensive and costly. And, people have been changing jobs. They've been thinking about early retirement. They're, whatever the case is. And you really can't make much of a move if you don't have an insurance plan because it'll gut you, right? I mean, it's so expensive. What do you do? Right. So think about this transition while you're like, you've got work, health insurance. What happens to those folks when they switch to retirement, especially if you do retire early?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it depends. A lot of people have different options. The classic one is still with Cobra, and Cobra lasts 18 months. And it can go longer in certain circumstances, but basically we're looking at 18 months. But one thing that people don't always realize with Cobra is if your employer was subsidizing part of your health insurance. So let's say you were still paying for part of your health insurance. A lot of times, depending on the size of your employer, depending on how the plan was set up, they're still subsidizing part of it. Well, now you got to pay for the whole thing with Cobra. So there is just right there and on the spot, there is a likely increase in your health insurance premiums. So that's something people need to be aware of. And then kind of knowing past Cobra, what could be the possible insurance costs. And a lot of my clients are retiring before 65. So, and they're not yet going to be on Social Security. So they're probably not taking Medicare quite yet until, because they're not quite to age 65. So there's some things we have to talk about with, bridging the gap there and kind of getting from point A to point B to point C, with and without Medicare.
So what's the deal on Medicare? Do you need to do that is it 3 months?
Yeah, I always tell people there's a 7-month window. So It's 3 months before you turn 65. Then you have the month you turn 65, and you have 3 months after you turn 65. That's when you're supposed to enroll for Medicare. There's a lot of ins and outs with whether you should be at least going with Medicare Part A, which is the hospitalization, which is free. Medicare Part B, which is the doctor visits and general health care, medical care, which you do have to pay for. But, that's something that may be related to if you're still working with your employer or if your spouse is still working with their employer. But you're looking at a 7-month window. If you should be applying for Medicare and you fail to do so and you need to, then your next window is the following first 3 months, January, February, March, and you can get penalized if you don't take Medicare when you're supposed to. And that penalty can be it's 10% per year as long as you're doing, and these are permanent increases in Medicare. So it's a pretty big penalty. So you need to make sure that you follow the Medicare timelines for filing. And then whether you're going to do Part A or Part B, talk to me, talk to, the Social Security and Medicare offices about what they should be doing, talk to your employer about what the possibilities are. But I would say if you have an advisor like me, just sit down with me. Well, we'll talk about what the different possibilities are and what avenue you should go down that is least cost, or maybe not least cost, but most productive for you in your health situation.
So you're mentioning about the penalization and not doing it. I guess a lot of people hear, and I think I've heard this too. Don't we get auto enrolled into A at least, or do you still have to make sure you go through that?
You still have to apply.
Okay.
But then, you're basically that is the default. That is correct.
Okay.
So that's why I always tell people, at least you're going to get Part A. That is, again, it's free. I mean, there are deductibles, but again, the cost is free. So if you never use it, you're not going to be paying any deductibles or not. But Part A is the default. That's where you want to start with. And then Part B has to do with, again, your other circumstances. And then Part D, people sometimes forget about that as well, where that's the prescription drug portion of Medicare. That also fits into all this. So there's,
I was going to say, let's go ahead and just hit on those, right? So the supplemental stuff, right? The part A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way through whatever, right? So, obviously D's, drugs, and so on and so forth. But, many advisors, John, at this point in the game wind up having at least, maybe not in-house, but they certainly have somebody on speed dial, a Medicare kind of specialist that they can refer clients over to, right? Because there's a whole lot of wonky complication in there.
Yes, I do have something that I lean on for this type of analysis. In our industry, there are so many different complex figures that we have to go through to determine which direction we want to go with a client. Like I have a Social Security analyzer. I don't sit there with my Texas Instruments calculator figuring that out.
Don't.
Yeah, so I have to lean on that. And then certainly with Medicare, I have a gentleman that I kind of provide your case, your scenario to, and he will give me some suggestions. He's not going to tell you this is what you have to do. These are, again, your choices that you should be looking into. But one of the things we have to find out is we have to do a little audit of you, find out what your prescriptions are, what your HMO may be currently, whether so the Medicare Advantage part could be discussed properly. So yeah, there is definitely somebody that I lean on for this to help me navigate through the water so that I can help you. Not to do my best, Tom Cruise. Help me help you.
That's right. Help me.
But I do need help from the client in order to do my best job for them.
Yeah. All right. So then let's talk about the difference here. The Medigap and then the Medicare Advantage plan, right? So like my brother just retired and he had to, go on, get all this stuff done. He just retired last October. And I told him, it's like, well, just talk to her mom. She's 83. She's been on it for a while, get some information from her. He didn't. He monkeyed around, did it his own way, and jacked it up. Big surprise, right? So to the point of talking to somebody. So what's a little difference between Medigap and the Medicare Advantage?
Great question. And then this is, again, one of the most oft asked questions when we're trying to do some Medicare planning. So first of all, we all kind of know at this stage of our lives, if you're a retiree, that Medicare does not pay for everything. There are deductibles and then there are co-pays that you'll have as well. So Medicare does not pay for anything. And the shocker for some people, again, we're not going to talk about this today, is Medicare doesn't pay for long-term care either. And there are limits even on hospitalization. So there are limits to what Medicare will pay for, and Medigap insurance will fill in those gaps. So there will be a premium that you'll have to pay. And so that will help you with, again, perhaps the elimination period for the hospital stays, any of your co-pays, things like that. Medigap is there to help bridge that gap there. And that's how it sounds. Right. Medicare Advantage is a whole different, I won't say it's a whole different animal, but it's substantially different. You cannot have both Medigap and Medicare Advantage. Have both. Yeah, it's illegal. You're breaking the law. They're not going to take you to jail, but you get the idea here. Medicare Advantage is basically everything wrapped up in one nice little package, and your HMO or your provider is going to get paid by the government. So they're the ones that are going to be receiving the Medicare benefits, if you will. and then you will be paying again directly to your HMO for whatever the cost may be for that. So the good thing about Medicare Advantage is, we'll use the example out here in California of Kaiser. If you've had Kaiser, you can continue to use Kaiser, so you can keep your doctors. I don't want to go. Should I say the line? If you like your
Go for it.
doctor, you can keep your doctor. So
if you like your doctor,
I had to go there. But this way, if you have your network of providers already, you can keep them, generally speaking, and you can also have your prescription medicine as well. And they kind of wrap them up in a nice, tidy little bow. And
that's more like that. You have to work with somebody in the network, right?
Yes. Yeah. They can refer you out just like they do now. But again, that may cost a little bit more money to do that.
Okay.
But I have found out with my client base that is what is popular, is using Medicare Advantage. It costs some money. Let's just get that cat out of the bag right now. It costs some money, but I do think that is the best. This is an opinion here. The best full service method of getting your health provided when you're in your Medicare years. It's a simple, easy way to do it. Most of my clients, we're going to do again, when we do our financial planning, we'll account for that in there. And so it's simple. It's pretty easy to set up to. Usually you just go to your HMO. If you're using Kaiser or Blue Cross Blue Shield, whoever, you just go right to them and say, help me. And they will usually guide you through the different options they'll have, because they themselves will have different options that may fit what you may want to do. And that saves the trouble in many instances having to go to the evil outside guy that may not know you as well. So you'll talk to your provider who already has a case history of you.
Final quick question, John, and then we'll jump over and do our 2-minute warning here to wrap up. But so supplemental stuff, common, rare, just about everybody takes it.
In my client base, and I can't speak for other advisors, but in my client base, I would say over half the people do use some sort of Medicare Advantage type plan. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head. I'm sure there is somebody that uses Medigap, but I'm just not coming up with a name right now. There are some people that just stick with regular Medicare, straight, A, B, and or D. They just kind of stick to
that. Seems to be the
basics.
norm, though, right? A, B, and usually D a little in there. Yeah.
Yeah. D is the prescription medicine part. And so some people don't use that, but I don't know why they wouldn't, because again, you have to go directly to a provider to get that. But, prescription costs can get pretty high. So,
ridiculous.
It's something that I do recommend, but yeah, I would say my client base, over half use some sort of Medicare Advantage or some sort of plan that helps with Medicare for them.
Yeah, you got the D for drugs, man. Don't like the drugs, but the drugs like me. Right? So,
yes, and
something like
by the way, anybody that asks what Medicare Part C is, because we kind of skipped through that.
Sure.
That is Medicare Advantage. So A, B, and D, so A is hospitalization, B is your doctors, if you will, and then D is prescriptions. C fits in that. That's Medicare Advantage, and so Medicare Advantage kind of does A, B, and D for you.
Okay, what's G?
G, I don't know what.
And why didn't they make P prescriptions?
Yeah,
I mean, come on, John.
And it's funny when you look at Medicare Advantage, there are all these letters for them. There is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and all of that stuff. All these different types of Medicare Advantage. There are rules about what the providers can do. It is crazy if you start looking at all of it. And I know many clients have looked at it and their heads start spinning. My head starts spinning when I start looking at all this stuff. But it's important to look at it, though. We can't just gloss over it. You can't say, I'll get to it later. I think it's wise to start doing this before you turn 65, start preparing and start thinking about how you're going to do it. Because when you get to 65, it will get overwhelming at that point. And it's nice to kind of know when you get there, this is what we plan on doing.
John has a couple of free books, Diffuse and Tax-Free Retirement in California, that reveal exactly how you can experience zero taxes in retirement and overcome the IRS lien on your 401k, IRA, and 403b, which could threaten your future lifestyle. These are complimentary, so all you have to do to pick these up 100% free is just stop by rescuemyretirement.net. That's rescuemyretirement.net. Fill in the basic info and he'll ship those out to you immediately. That's rescuemyretirement.net for a copy of Diffuse and Tax-Free Retirement in California. It's 2-minute warning time here with Coach and I. We're going to take an email question that we get in to the show. And of course, as always, don't forget, if you'd like to reach out to John, there's lots of good ways to do that. You can get some time on his calendar. Just simply go to bookachatwithjohn.net. That's bookachatwithjohn.net. We'll have that on the screen for folks that are watching in video form, or go to mearsmoney.com as well, mearsmoney.com. And that's where we're getting an email question from this week from Joseph. He says, Coach, got an old 401k from an old job that I'm obviously not contributing to anymore. Since I work someplace else, I was going to roll it over, but it's done really well this year. So I'm wondering, should I continue with the rollover or just hold off and let it do its own thing?
This is a great question. I do get this asked a lot. And so this is where I believe we have to know a little bit more about his situation. Are we going to roll that 401k over into his new 401k? Or is he going to roll that 401k into a new self-directed IRA? You have those choices.
Let's give an example for both real quick.
So if you started at one aerospace company, you went to another aerospace company, for example. So the new aerospace company may not let you roll this money over immediately, but they will say after, say, 6 months. I'm just making up a date. They all will change. They'll vary. But you'll have the old 401k. Let's say you've been contributing to it for 10 years and you have $100,000, $150,000 or more over there. You might want to roll over to your new company plan and then start, and you have to go under their rules with their investment choices, but then you're allowed to do this and continue to contribute and let that 401k grow. You can also take this old 401k and roll it over into a self-directed IRA. There are pros and cons to that. I will go through what those pros and cons are with you. They generally may have to do with maybe do you have some company stock. If you're in the public space, there may be reasons if you have a 457 plan where you may want to leave it there because there are certain rules, age 50, 55, where you can actually access that before 59 and a half. So maybe reasons why you leave it there as well. Taking out loans. You can't take a loan out of an IRA. You can take a loan out of 401k. I try and talk my clients out of that, but if that's something you might need, there are reasons why you might leave it where it is or roll it into your new 401k where you can access it there, and why you would not want to roll it over to a self-directed IRA. But there are a multitude of reasons why you may want to roll it over into self-directed IRA, not the least of which is you're going to have a lot more flexibility for all your planning needs, whether you're going to convert to a Roth, where you're going to, all the plethora of choices you have as far as investments, because in a 401k, you're limited. With an IRA, you are, I would say you're unlimited, but you're close to that. And then any other planning needs we have for estates, beneficiaries, so on and so forth. There's a million things we can do with an IRA that we can't do within a 401k due to plan rules. So now getting back to the question here is the 401k did really well at this old location here. My question then I would ask him would be, well, what was your motivation in the first place? Because unless you're guaranteed that you're going to continue with this success, I think your reasons for rolling over or not rolling over should remain the same. Now, it's great it did well, but to me, that wouldn't change my thinking.
Should we treat it like winnings at the crap table then? It's
I would. It's nice to have happened, but
it was a good year it happened, right? But
absolutely. Yes. It's great. And I'm happy when clients do well. It's like even when people do well with a single sock and they're saying, so what should I do with that single sock? Well, eventually we want to, convert that from a, concentrated position to a more diversified position. But that doesn't mean that that was a bad thing that you did by having that one stock like Apple, where it's done great, or Nvidia, it's done great. But at some point you want to get into a more diversified position. Well, the same thing with this old 401k. Okay. At some point you probably do want to roll it over, and also, or you may want to put it into an IRA. And again, with IRA, there's better tracking. You want to consolidate accounts. You don't want to have 401ks all over the place. It's hard to really keep track of all that. And I know this is hard to believe, but some people forget their old 401ks too.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
So there's reasons why the original intent should be carried through. Whatever the original intent was. Sense. Yeah. I say continue on. Don't just leave it there because it did well, because you have no guarantee it's going to continue to do well. That's
I was going to ask you that. I was like, I felt as you were going through there, I was going to say, okay, there's some good possible reasons to maybe leave it, but is just because it did well one of them? And ultimately, I think it comes down to the control word, right? Mm-hmm. You just have more control by going ahead and moving it, rolling it. And you had a great year. So just take the money and run, right? Yeah, just roll it in and roll on from there based on, the recommendation from your financial professional, Joseph. So if you got some questions, need some help, don't have a financial professional, well, reach out to John, get onto the calendar, book a chat with John.net. That's bookachatwithjohn.net. And that's going to do it this week for the podcast. So we'll be back in 2 weeks with part 2 on long-term care insurance and life insurance. We'll kind of pick up that part of the conversation there as well. So don't forget to subscribe to us on Apple or Spotify or YouTube platform now. Hit the little subscribe button, the little notification bell, that little joker there is going to pop up so that you get new episodes when they come out. And Coach and I will try to keep it fun and entertaining, but sometimes you got to talk about some of the serious stuff, and life insurance is one of those. So, or just insurance in general is one of those. So check us out, and we'll see you next time here on Red Zone Retirement Program, Simple Investing, Smart Future.
Advisory services offered through Mears Money Management, Inc., an RIA registered in the states of California and Texas. California Department of Insurance License number 0685203.